Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far, with OpTic walking away with the World Championship trophy just a couple of days ago. Big questions being raised as to whether it could have been Drazah in Kenny's place had he made that decision at the start of the season. Nadeshot now gives his point of view and says that as far as he's concerned, Drazah should have taken the OpTic offer. Easy to say in hindsight, but I think many would agree now that is probably the correct take. And even Scrappy continuing to twist the knife on his another victory result this weekend up against Mr. Drazah. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. This is Ken. I think this was the after party that I was at, but I couldn't stay too late. I was absolutely shattered. I'd had too much to drink, to be fair as well. I'm not going to lie. And I think Kenny turned up kind of towards the end of the night and, was obviously having a rather good time. And this is another kind of point of view here. I think Kenny replied and said, like, I don't remember any of this, but I was clearly absolutely vibing. And, good on him, right? Because what a result it ended up being. This as well was interesting. I know you guys would have probably seen this going around yesterday. Some of the comments made at the likes of Sender. I think even ReeaL mentioned himself that there were racial slurs getting thrown his way. And I think Sib obviously said the same thing. So, very disappointing to hear, obviously. And I think it was good to see Hex be very forthright and take a stand on this and say, look, this stuff isn't trash talk. This is just straight up disrespect, and, Hex really shutting it down. So I think there's something to be said on, because I know people were in the crowd at this point when the guys were walking past, and there was a feeling that there was some pretty wild stuff said and there weren't really any consequences, right? Like some of the stuff that was said, you'd think that some of those guys could have been kicked out of the venue either temporarily or permanently. So even from esports in general, or from Call of Duty esports, there's an argument that some of these guys should just be banned from ever coming back and attending an event again, but that's not happened, right? But I think it was cool to see a lot of the community reaction in a positive way for the players that were affected and the coaches as well that were affected. So then there was this talk that actually I think I guess had this ready for on this day anyway, that aBeZy was suspended for repeatedly harassing MettalZ employees and detrimental conduct to the league. So it wasn't just the CDL and onwards that had this kind of conduct related drama. It was true back in the day as well, but the feeling is that maybe the CDL got to do something about that going forward. Just wanted to mention this, by the way, the Process 7, the second edition, is coming on OpTic Gaming Day, I think, so the 14th of August. That's when this is going to drop. It's obviously going to be an absolute banger. Nobody denies that. What I was wondering your guys' opinion on, though, was this, because this weekend, Crim, here he is, was in great shape and he was at the World Championship. Here he is in his Rafa Racing Club logo. Here he is on the Flank Watch party with the OpTic Gaming jersey on, and here's of course that incredibly ice cold picture with the Dynasty and the new generation OpTic team. And then this though was the main picture that he posted. Best champs yet. Glad to see the green wall back on top with his old school OpTic jersey back in business. Legendary stuff right here, no doubt about that. So what do we think about OpTic Crimsix, right? Because if you guys have noticed, he's no longer FaZe Crimsix. That's not a thing anymore. And it kind of makes sense because FaZe were paying him to do what? I don't really know. I know they have the relationship with Porsche, and if he drives Porsches in the Porsche Sprint North American Championship Series, whatever. But that's really now through the Rafa Racing Club that are funding that, not FaZe as far as I'm concerned. So I think that the FaZe Crim thing is, seems to be over, right? And therefore, is it about time that they welcome him back to the green wall? Now, with the things that Crim has said about OpTic over the last, 3 years, I think Crim's he's continuing to grow as a person as well. But I personally think that Hex would be likely to welcome Crim back with open arms. Certainly this picture makes me think that, if Crim wants to come back and join OpTic as a content creator or whatever, just as, I wouldn't even say ambassador, but just to come back as part of the family, I feel like it's got to be inevitable at this point, hasn't it, right? Because you got the four OpTic guys on the left, you've got Formal who's still there, you've got Karma who's there, you've got Scump who's there, and honestly, if Crim comes on board, there is an argument to say, what a coaching staff, right? I mean, we talked about this before when Karma was there as not coaching the team. He was just kind of chilling around. And I'm like, guys, you've got Karma signed to your org. Like, get him in the calls, you know, get him in the comms, see what he has to say. And the same could apply to Crim as well. So I wouldn't be, you know, just stay tuned for in that process. Who knows if they announce OpTic Crim, right? I think it's possible. Dashy, of course, becoming a World Championship winner this weekend in really remarkable fashion. But we've got to dive into exactly some of the reaction to numbers such as this. So these are Grand Finals KDs across the MW3 season. Simp is number 1 with a 1.19. Then, though, it's Kenny. And this is... I wouldn't even say this is surprising, but it's most certainly impressive, right? That Kenny is having a 1.12 over the entirety of his Grand Finals appearances this year. And, you know, HyDra at a 1.08, Sib, Shotzzy's here as well. But Simp does lead the line. Drazah down here, though, at a 0.95. As to be fair, is Scrappy. So maybe there's something to be said on that. These guys cannot be separated. So maybe there's something to be said on whether these guys can actually be separated. But this was the further reaction here from Scrappy. So he says, haters are just fans in denial. ReeaL coming soon. So this, of course, was the second picture when he was flipping off Drazah across the stage when they won the series. This, though, was the first picture. Goes pretty hard, not gonna lie. But, you know, because you got Draz cheesing in the background, kind of almost implying, oh, we're gonna beat these guys type thing. But, of course, that's not what happened in the end. So it's difficult to say exactly who Scrappy's talking about here, like which haters he's referring to precisely. But I must say, Scrappy as an individual personality never fails to deliver, right? There's always something with this guy. I generally think that Scrappy is, you know, joining the league has been one of the best things to happen to the league in a rather long time. I think we were, you know, almost crying out for a player like Scrappy, and then right when we needed him, to be honest, he arrived, and the rest of the last couple of years, of course, is history since then. This, by the way, is very interesting. Scrappy versus Drazah head-to-head matchup. Now, the funny thing is, this isn't really even a rivalry. Like, okay, in terms of event victories, Drazah has won more, but he's been around longer. Average placing though goes to Scrap. Total head-to-head is 10-3 in his favour. Finals head-to-head 1-0. Online head-to-head 3-2. LAN head-to-head 7-1. And both times they played at Champs, Scrappy's won the game. The boys also put together a card for HyDra versus Simp, which is pretty interesting just because, you know, event wins, obviously Simp's been around a bit longer, but an average placing and head-to-head and stuff like this is going to favour Simp generally. But finals head-to-head, HyDra's actually beaten Simp twice, and Simp's only beaten him once. COD Champs is neck and neck as well. So, you know, it is interesting, is it not, that of all the stats that, you know, FaZe get criticised on, the one typically is their Grand Finals win percentage, and, well, exactly what you are seeing here in this graphic precisely. But I wanted to share this clip here from Nadeshot when he's discussing the Drazah story and effectively giving his perspective on why he should have joined OpTic.
But it's still wild to me, bro. Like, you know, I don't mean to, like, bring something up that isn't relevant to this conversation. But if you want to hear my honest take, I am still shocked that Drazah decided to go over to FaZe instead of OpTic. I get it from a roster perspective. Like, if I'm Drazah and my hardest matches that I've played for the last 2 years have been against Cellium, Simp, and aBeZy, if I'm solely thinking about winning exclusively and only care about that, which I know some of you guys would argue that's like the most important thing and the only thing players should care about, but I disagree with that statement in itself. But if I were Drazah's like manager, or if I were making the decision for him, I would have said, yo, I don't give a fuck what you think. You're going to go play for OpTic. Like, if I'm a player, under any circumstance do I ever, in any capacity, decline a opportunity given to me by Hector and the OpTic Call of Duty team?
My main question on the Drazah stuff really, though, is that if he did join OpTic, would it have actually mattered, right? Like, would that team have done as well as they did with Kenny? Because I'm not so convinced personally. I think the Drazah, from like an individual perspective, can be just as good as Kenny. I think he can be just as impactful as Kenny. Certainly in the game. Out of game, maybe there's a slight debate on that just because he doesn't quite have all the experience and the veteran elements that Kenny has to his game. But at the same time, he does have an incredible shot. And he's a world champion, of course. But one of the issues he has is that these numbers don't look great. These are, in the last 2 seasons, records in finals in terms of kills and deaths for respective players. So aBeZy's got a 0.97, Simp is the best performer at a 1.12. This is grand final stats, by the way. So, you know, of course, like, they haven't all made, like, in Slash's case, like, crazy amounts of them with FaZe. But nonetheless, Slasher with the 1.10, I think, does, in hindsight, put his stock in a pretty decent position. Now, look, sure, were FaZe dysfunctional with Slasher and Cell? Yes. Largely, I think because Cell was just, you know, he was playing like a main, Slasher was a main, that ain't gonna work. If Cell played faster, could have been a different story. So, you know, I'm not saying that Slasher for Drazah is the way to go again, but at least it's something to, you know, very slightly think about, especially with, you know, we talked about it on the Dope Check show, which is coming very shortly. Girlfriend drama, right, that is continuing to linger behind the scenes. Who knows what's next on that one, but this is very interesting. COD players who won the most championships in 4 different seasons. Crimsix won 6 across 2013 to 2017 and then 2020, when he was either joint or most championships in all of those seasons. Scump did it as well in 2011. He won the most championships as a player in that season. Same in 15, 16, 17. And then Kenny, right, who joins the list. 2018, he won the most championships as a player. Okay, tied with, I guess, a couple of his teammates, but you get the picture. 2019, same story. 2022, same story. 2024, same story. Impressive performance. Another storyline going into Sunday as well, actually, was on Skyz, because he had an unbelievable Grand Finals record until this Grand Finals. Like, his championship finals history rate was as follows. So he lost the first ever one that he played at Atlanta 2020, but after that, largely online, win, 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 win. Win, of course. It's a very impressive finals record from Skyz, and well, finally OpTic put that to bed, I suppose, this year. That would have actually passed Scump, Crim, and Formal for most consecutive finals appearances with victories, which is, you know, also a pretty crazy stat that he nearly took, but of course wasn't quite able to. This I thought was pretty funny as well, as JP says. The way they were warming up OpTic for their big series was basically just a 2v2 each other in hardpoint. That was their whole strategy, and to be fair, seems like a reasonably viable strategy. But the issue is that they were bringing in Karma as well to warm up the boys, and you know, Karma's pretty nice on the game. And this is the funny thing with Karma. Sure, he's a coach of the team, but we know that he's so talented that he can pick up basically any game and make it work for him. So yeah, rumor has it that in their practice, their warm-up scrims, Karma just hopped on, played the game for a second, and was absolutely tucking the OpTic guys into bed and was like, hang on a second, am I warming them up, or am I just, you know, lacking, you know, giving them no confidence, right, going into the big one? And so JP and maybe Karma need to be a bit careful of that going forwards. This I thought was pretty funny. I put this together yesterday. Some people liked it, some people didn't, but you know, it's basically a play on the lights were brighter than expected, right? That has been said multiple times, not just in COD by Zoomer, of course, but also in, you know, NVA or whatever. It's a classic meme. So that's what this whole play situation was about right about here. And just one final thing to mention I thought was still kind of fascinating, really, was on the actual state of the show itself that they put on, because in the background here you can see, as the crowd are chanting green wall, you can see the wristbands light up. And I thought this is such a cool feature. Don't exactly know whose idea this was, whether it was Corey's idea, whether it was, you know, someone else at the OpTic production team, but you know, what an idea, what a way to execute it. And you know, you can't see it great on this camera here, but I tell you, in person it really was something else. I think the camera generally did do a reasonable job making that clear. But very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.